Good evening, everyone. My name is Gregg Kaye. I'm the Commissioner of the Commonwealth Coast Conference, and I'd like to welcome you to our second panel discussion highlighting some great people who have successfully made the transition from student athlete to a professional role as either a coach or administrator in the CCC, and in some cases, both. We had an absolutely wonderful session with 5 different panelists last night, and I'm confident that our group tonight is going to crush it as well. There are some great stories to be told and some great advice to be shared for our current student athletes who might wish to follow in their footsteps. So before we get started, let's meet the panelists. A former 3-time All-CCC selection in baseball at Salve, Regina University from 2005 to 2008, who posted the highest GPA for a 4-year student athlete at Salve. He has a master's degree from UMass Amherst's Eisenberg School of Management, served as owner and general manager of the Ocean State Waves of the New England Collegiate Baseball League, and is currently Salve's Assistant Director of Athletics. Say hello to Matt Finlayson.
Thank you, Gregg, and welcome everybody. Pleasure to be on here. I do have to start with a special shout out for our fellow panelist, Matt Horth. Our head coach, Craig O'Rourke, pretty much described him as the Michael Jordan of the CCC and misses seeing him on the pitch dearly this fall.
Oh boy, thank you, Matt.
That is outstanding. Speaking of Matt, a former 4-time All-CC first-team selection in soccer for Gordon College from 2007 to 2010. He etched his name in the school and conference record books in numerous offensive categories. He went on to play professionally in Iceland, but also played at the pro level at home in the NASL, the USL, and with the New England Revolution of Major League Soccer. He is now his alma mater's head soccer coach and has a master's degree from Liberty University. Greetings to Matt Horth.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and learn from everyone else as well.
A former basketball academic all-conference student athlete who graduated from the University of New England in 2011, she has distinguished herself as the Nor'easter's first full-time coordinator of strength and conditioning, while also working on a master's degree in nutrition at UNE. In addition to those duties, she serves as National Strength and Conditioning Association's director for the state of Maine. Say hi to Lyndie Kelley.
Hey, Greg, I'm super excited to be here with everybody tonight. And like Matt said, learn from everybody as well.
Sounds great. A former 4-time All-CCC first-team selection in basketball at Nichols College from 2005 to 2009, she earned all 3 major individual end-of-season awards bestowed by the conference's coaches her senior year. A former assistant coach at UNE and head coach at Daniel Webster and Mitchell, who has a master's degree from Northeastern University. At Nichols, she also serves as the Director of Student Life and Scheduling Coordinator and represents all of New England as a member of the Division III Women's Basketball National Committee. Let's welcome MaryLynn Skarzenski.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Doug, for putting this together. I'm excited to be here and can't wait to share and learn from everyone else that's here. And I'm excited to learn from Lyndie, who I also got to coach at UNE.
That's a great little twist that we have. I think that's awesome. Just shows you the connections that that we have within the conference with each other. Last but not least, a former softball academic all-conference student athlete and sports information intern at Endicott College, from where she graduated in 2018. She is a recipient of a prestigious NCAA Ethnic Minority and Women's Internship Grant, and that has led her to Roger Williams University, where she serves as the Hawks Assistant Sports Information Director while concurrently working on requirements for her master's degree. A warm welcome to Casie Beauchemin.
Hi guys, thank you so much, Greg. I'm super excited to be here tonight, so thank you for putting this together, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing from the other panelists.
Thanks, everybody. Now, before we ask our panelists some questions, a reminder that our audience can ask questions of our panelists by using the chat feature, which will be monitored by our Associate Commissioner, Doug Chin, and Doug will let us know that a question has been submitted. We may not be able to get to them all if we get a lot of good ones, but we'll do our best. And a reminder to our panelists that they are free to respond or ask questions of each other. So let's do it. Our first question, it's a two-parter. Did you set out to work in athletics? And when did you decide that you wanted to make athletics your career? We'll start out with Matt from Salve.
Thanks, Greg. Not initially. I attended school to pursue accounting and did really well with that GPA-wise, but through internships, sophomore and junior year, I learned pretty quickly that sitting at a desk all day and having the same work all the time without any change or unique challenges was something I didn't want to do. So senior year, I was fortunate enough to get into the UMass Amherst grad program for sport management. And I worked 2 assistantships there that paid for grad school. I got to learn under Glenn Wong and work in the ticket office doing the accounting for the Mullen Center. And I just loved it. I fell in love with working in sports. It was something I was passionate about. I really enjoyed all the people up there and even some of my fellow classmates that have gone on to do such amazing things. But I am really fortunate and lucky to be in athletics still and back at Salve in the role that I'm in.
Thanks, Matt. MaryLynn, how about you?
So initially, yes, but not college athletics. So when I went to Nichols, I was going to school to be a math teacher. During my sophomore year, I decided that that was not for me, that teaching math every day was not going to be fun. So I dropped out of the education program, just majored in math, minored in psychology, and really started to kind of lurk around the athletic department, could say best, and watch what all the coaches did, not just my own, and fell in love with the aspect of what athletics is. And from there, I was able to get my first job at UNE and kind of make it into a career. While I was at Mitchell, we had some turnover and some jobs fell that weren't getting done. So I just picked them up, which allowed me to just become an assistant athletic director and kind of run with it. And the Nichols job opened and I was able to come back home to the Hill.
That's awesome. Matt Horth.
Yeah, so my pathway is slightly different. In high school, like every other high schooler, I dreamed of going pro, and it kind of seemed far-fetched at times. My parents always told me it's not going to happen. You need to have a degree, which was great advice. But I was a little too stubborn to listen. So going through college, that was always kind of a dream in the back of my head, pursuing a degree in exercise science. And I was, through sheer hard work and some fortunate circumstances and some sheer dumb luck, really, was able to turn the corner and continue playing after college. So in a different way, athletics was what I wanted to be doing since, my high school days. During my college days and also in the pros, I always had that itch to coach. And there were times I'd find myself on the sidelines, almost coaching my teammates, coaching the session, if you will, and helping other strikers, other defenders. So it just kind of came natural to me. And I knew that the itch was there that, man, if I could really make this a career, I'd love to do it. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, after my pro career, I just needed something new. I was a little burnt out. So I did something completely away from sports. It took me about a month or two before that itch came back and said, okay, what am I doing? I need to be coaching. This is where I am.
Sounds great. Lyndie, how about you?
Well, as the only strength coach in this group here, it's a little bit of a different route potentially, but I set out to become an athletic trainer at UNE, and I did that for about 2 months and quickly realized, as much as I have great respect for athletic training comrades, that I can't tape ankles and also coach. So I decided to make the switch to applied exercise science and really found a niche and a home there. And it was about my junior year, that internship I did between my junior and senior year, at a local private sector facility, strength and conditioning facility, that I fell in love with working with teams specifically. And I knew that strength and conditioning was what I wanted to do moving forward. And the funny thing is I can remember sitting in a meeting with my supervisor at the time, and he said, where do you want to be in 5 years? This was 2013. And And I said, I want to be the first strength coach at UNE. No such position existed at the time, and I had no idea how that was going to happen, but I was in on it. So when a fitness related position opened up at the university, I jumped on it, and it had a small piece of it that was involved with athletics. And I latched onto that small piece and made it as big as I could. And here we are 6 years later with our great strength and conditioning program. And it's been an absolute blast. I was never the most athletic creature. Anthony Ewing would attest to that. He stuck with me for 4 years. And actually the first time I ever met MaryLynn, I was a poor little freshman bringing the ball up at Nichols, and she picked my pocket, laid it in, and I was like, well, there we are. But then I had the chance to learn from her too. So I've always been fascinated with enhancing athletic performance and helping athletes reach their potentials, both personally and athletically.
That's awesome. Let's send it over to Casie.
All right. So my path was a little bit different as well. I started when I was in high school. I was graduating high school. I wasn't really sure about what I wanted to do. So I got into Endicott College as a student athlete and played softball there. And I took a chance when I was trying to figure out what to major in. I was looking back at what I had done in the past and what I was interested and passionate about. And my whole life was sports. So I knew that was definitely something I would love to pursue a career in. So I chose sport management to major in. And then from there, I did 3 internships at Endicott. One was at Reebok International. So I got a corporate experience. One was at Bryant University. So I had the college athletics at a D1 university. And then my last one was a semester-long internship at Merrimack College, D2 now, where I was doing sports communication stuff. And that's where I just absolutely fell in love with sports info. And I actually had the chance to, my senior year, due to a concussion, I wasn't able to play softball, but it did allow me to go to do an internship at Endicott College. And I worked in their sports info department. And between all those experiences, I was able to weigh what I wanted to do. And I knew I fell in love with social media and sports communication. And that's where I landed my first job at Roger Williams University. And I absolutely loved it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to follow up with a real quick one now. Are you happy that you chose athletics for your career? And what role would you ultimately like to be in? We'll start with Matt Finlayson.
The short answer, yes. Love my job. Get to wake up and do something I'm passionate about every day. Get to work with amazing coaches and student athletes and our administration team as well. I ultimately would love to be an athletic director someday, and that's been my goal since grad school.
Sounds good. MaryLynn?
Definitely happy working in athletics. Now, if you ask me in the midst of my season when things aren't going well, I may give you a different answer. But on the daily, yep, pretty happy with my job. And I think I do want to become a director of athletics at some point. So that's kind of my goal.
Matt Horth.
Yeah, thrilled. This is where I want to be. Head coach is my seat on the bus, and just with my skill set. And for me, it's kind of what Matt touched on and Lyndie as well. It's just helping people become the best in themselves and having a day that's not similar to the one I had before that. You know, there's no 2 problems that are the same. There's always a different solution to find. And I love that.
Lyndie.
Absolutely thrilled to be doing what I do. And kind of like MaryLynn mentioned too, being home and doing it as a nor'easter. I don't think there's anything more special than that, and having to have the opportunity to build my program as it exists. In the future, you know, as a part of adding my master's in nutrition, et cetera, I'm hoping to continue to grow our program to a point where we can be really holistic with our sports performance approach from a psychology standpoint and a nutrition standpoint. You know, and if someday that grew into an administrator type position, that would be phenomenal as well.
Thank you. Casie?
Yes, I'm super thrilled about my career, pursuing a career in sport management and college athletics. For the role that I would ultimately like to be in, I absolutely fell in love with the marketing piece of this position. And so I would probably either want to be like a director of marketing at a sport organization. It could be college athletics. It could be professional sports. So as long as I'm in the sport industry, I'm okay.
Sounds good. The next one, some of you have kind of alluded to this already. So if that's the case, you can certainly expound on it a little bit more. What do you love about your current position? And we'll start with MaryLynn.
I think the best part about my current position is every day is different. For some people, that may be the worst part of their job, but the reason I got into athletics and didn't follow another career path or work an office job was because I don't like to be doing the same thing every day. I'm easily bored. I like to constantly be on the go. I like to have things to do. Now, COVID adds a twist. Triple E added a twist last year as well, but it keeps things exciting. There's different problems to solve. You're constantly dealing with different people. I also love that we're always building relationships. We're meeting people, and the beauty of working at Nichols is we're such a small school. I get to meet all of the athletes, not just my own athletes, and get to work with them directly in different capacities on campus and learn from them as well. And then I get to have my hands in all different pots. I get to wear a hat all across campus doing different things. If I want, I can ask to do something else, and there's somewhere on campus that I can get involved in that, which is really nice because I can find my passion and follow my passion at any point while I'm working, which is nice.
Sounds great. Matt Horth.
Sorry, need to unmute myself. I think for me, sharing my passion with other young men who also share that same passion and working alongside toward a common goal is terrific. Obviously, there's the competition piece of it where I'm just a natural competitor and doesn't matter if it's soccer or, tiddlywinks, I want to beat your butt. And that's just the beauty of athletics. But also a key part for me, and part of the reason that I wanted to do coaching in the first place, was because I can help other people see the potential that maybe they don't even know they have, and help them become better than who they were before, the day before, the week before, et cetera, and see this long progress of someone developing as a player, certainly as a person also as well, and probably even more important. And that's just a beautiful thing.
Sounds great. Lyndie.
My overarching philosophy as a strength and conditioning coach is called Leave It Better. That's actually on the back wall of our facility in big letters. And I think that in itself is my favorite part of what I get to do, is I get to see them, kind of like Matt just mentioned, over 4 years, leave us better. They literally leave a mark on us, and we leave a mark on them when they become alums. And to MaryLynn's point of building relationships, I mean, I get to work with all 500-ish of our student athletes. And that's an incredible thing in its own right, to get to know all of them. I don't just have one program that I'm focused on. And that's unique to Division III with strength and conditioning as well. We often, need to constantly slide the spectrum of who needs us to be, you could be a football strength coach one day, and then you've got to work with women's basketball and then women's soccer and cross country and vice versa. And they all have different personalities and needs. And we kind of have to be able to set that temperature for each team and get to know them. And that's a real challenge, but I also absolutely love that, getting to be a chameleon, as Heather Davis says, in what I do every day.
Thank you. Casie.
So kind of piggybacking off of what a couple of the other panelists said, for me, it's all about the relationships as well, working with the student athletes on certain social media projects or just in general. I love that. And I also love having interns and work study students that are also sharing the same passion as the communication staff, just a passion for sports, and seeing them grow, like someone else said, across like the 4 years is amazing. I've only been here for 2.5, but even seeing the people that were freshmen and are now juniors is a crazy difference in how they grow. Also, like I said before, I fell in love with the social media aspect of things. And that's really where I found my passion. And so also wearing many different hats in Division III, there's just a ton of things that I love about this position.
Sounds great. And Matt.
Yeah, I think everything the panelists said is something we all share in our hearts working in athletics. Like MaryLynn said, doing things around campus. I've been an adjunct and I do about 10 credits. So I really get to also see a lot of our student athletes in the classroom, and you learn a lot from having a student. I also do a golf class. I'm waiting for that to pay off handicap wise, but haven't really seen that yet, Gregg. Additionally, the relationships you make with the people you work with. I'm an alum at Salve, so it feels like home, and I really miss the bigger events like homecoming weekend, where you get to see people you went to school with. You may have been in their wedding party, and seeing how they've grown, either professionally or personally. But that's something I feel like we probably all agree on that we miss that aspect of athletics for sure.
Matt, you mentioned golf. Is it easier to hit a ball standing still or a ball coming straight at you at 85, 90 miles an hour?
I think it depends on the day and the conditions and who's throwing it. I don't know. There's a lot of different factors.
Absolutely. The key word that I think a lot of folks use is passion, and you really have to be passionate about whatever you're doing, whether it's a job or just something you get enjoyment out of. And I can say, as somebody that took a hiatus for a few years, going about 20 years ago, you can't wait to get back in once you're doing something that you're not passionate about. So really some great answers. Now, we asked what you love about your current position, and now we're going to do the obvious follow-up, which ironically enough is very well suited to the times that we find ourselves in. And we actually got a question from someone in the audience about coaching or doing your job in athletics during the period of COVID. What is the biggest challenge that you face? And that can either be related to the time that we're in or just in a general sense. Now we'll start with MaryLynn.
I would say in the times we're in right now, the biggest challenge is we don't really have information to share to our student athletes or parents or fans. So we're going through such a odd time of, we're practicing, trying to keep our students engaged, trying to stay on top of what's happening in the social aspect of the world and politics. And then everyone wants to know, are you going to compete? When are we going to have games again? And none of us have that answer. No one really knows. It's such a fluid time. So it's a challenge to keep everyone involved and try to give them as much information as we have when we really don't have any information, and try to be an open book about where we are and kind of where we're going, and really keep them invested in where we're going. And we all want to compete. I don't think there's a person that's on this Zoom right now that doesn't want to get back to playing and having competition and see each other on the field and not on Zoom. I mean, I'd love to never be on Zoom again. but
Yep.
We don't have that
Yep.
option right now. So it's just trying to find a way to navigate that, and then navigating all the different things that are happening in the world and really being there for our student athletes and supporting them in any way we can.
Great answer. Matt Horth.
Yeah, I think overall, not having a D1 budget, certainly a challenge. Not having 5 assistant coaches that are all full-time, certainly a challenge, but that's kind of surface level stuff. In terms of the sign of the times, I think it's been a stark reminder to me that you never fully understand what people are going through. And everyone comes from such different backgrounds. And after 4 or 5 months in isolation, in quarantine, not playing your sport, not having a natural stress outlet, not being able to go to the park, I think you see some of the underlying things that people are coping with that you never know about. And as a coach, that's part of your job. You're an advisor, you're a mentor, you're a leader, and helping people succeed is part of that. So I think going through and realizing that what you see on the surface of somebody is not exactly the full story, and appropriately and respectfully and tactfully digging beneath those and pulling the layers of the onion back to help them as best as possible.
That's awesome. Lyndie.
Matt, great points there. Really good points. I've seen that a lot in the weight room myself, where reality is starting to set in a bit here and coming up in mid-October, that, we don't have competition right now, et cetera. It's like that extended preseason honeymoon phase is kind of waning. And keeping their engagement levels high and keeping them excited and invested in what we're doing and why we're doing it. I think we've been relatively successful with that up to this point, but just giving of yourself energy wise, I think every coach on here or administrator on here understands that, we really have to be the ones who are constantly kind of like giving them the energy and getting them to meet us where we're at. And that can be draining at times, for sure as well, to make sure that you're giving yourself enough self-care and keeping yourself where you need to be with your family and your other obligations and all of those sorts of things. So that I don't really believe in work-life balance. They never perfectly balance. I think there's a sliding spectrum, and at times you've got to dedicate more time to one area and maybe to the other, and be able to go back and forth. But certainly right now, keeping that engagement level high and giving of ourselves enough to keep them feeling like they've got a real purpose is a challenge, but a worthy pursuit.
That's outstanding. Casie.
So kind of what Matt said, one of the challenges in the sports info world, and especially in Division III, is not having that D1 budget, as well as 5 people working to help with social media and with stats and different things like that. So I would say there's so many different things that I would love. I have so many big ideas of like what I would want to do for in terms of social media and different ideas. And I look to see what Division I and II schools are doing, and sometimes I'd like to incorporate that into what we're trying to do. And there's just so many big ideas, but not enough resources almost. So whether in terms of budget or people. So I think that's probably one of the most challenging things, is just to work with what you have. But at the same time, it's super rewarding when you can work with what you have and you're successful with it. So
Absolutely. There's no better feeling than being resourceful with what you have at hand. Definitely agree with that. And Matt Finlayson.
Yeah, like what a lot of other people have said, our student athlete programming that Jody Meridian brought and Bill are a huge part of. We're really, missing out on our Seahawk Academy and mentoring events and a lot of things that we like to do in person. So we're adapting and doing hybrid models. But to sort of flip the coin on that question, pre-COVID, I would say one of our biggest challenges, but also one of the best attributes of Salve is being in Newport. Running events in Newport is definitely something I miss, but there's a lot of challenges with space limitations, shared facilities, parking, and just making sure that we're doing a good job with the community to keep Salve in a positive image, because Newport has so much going on. I'm sure everyone on here has probably hit the bridge and sat on the bridge for an hour and said, wow, this is beautiful, but let's just get to the game. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say.
Thank you. I'm going to check in with Doug. I think we've got some questions from the audience that Doug was going to throw at our panelists.
Yeah, one of the questions that came in, and these questions are basically regarding pursuing a career in athletics. Obviously, each position has its own professional organization. You got the NATA for trainers or strength coaches. You have an organization. Obviously, the coaches have their national coaching organizations. Sports Information has COSATA. How would you describe your interactions with those professional organizations, and what can students do to kind of open opportunities using those organizations?
Lyndie?
Yeah, so I'm the state director for the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and it's a completely voluntary position. So there's, 51 of us across the nation who do that. We also have regional coordinators. It's a pretty in-depth process, and most national organizations are. But my number one piece of advice for any of the students on the call is to get involved now. Find a way to get involved now, because I guarantee you that anybody who's in, what you would call, quote unquote, a power position within these organizations value you more than you know, as well as your input. We need you, and we need to know what you need from us. We love mentoring our up and coming young professionals. So I got involved in the NSCA via my mentor, Heath Pierce, who's our director of applied exercise science at UNE, as a sophomore. And, I never looked back. So the more you get involved early and often, the more you're going to see out of it. And then it's always a networking kind of pitfall that you always have to fall back on. You always have people that you can reach out to as you're growing your career and ask for help and assistance. But yeah, I think getting involved is huge.
MaryLynn?
Kind of to go off what Lyndie said a little bit, getting involved is huge, but a big piece of advice is you're always networking. Something I took from my playing career and when I was on the field or in the court is everyone that you interact with is someone that could help you at some point. So no matter what you do and how you represent yourself and your institution, you're leaving a lasting impression, and you want it to be a good one. So like Lyndie said, leave it better wherever you are. You're networking constantly, and you don't know who could help you get a job one day, or who may be the hiring person or know the hiring person for that job of your dreams. And as far as professional organizations, with the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, they do a great job of putting on the So You Want to Be a Coach at the conventions where you can be put into that position and you get to network with Division I, Division II, Division III high school coaches at our convention, which is also our Final Four. And then you get resources throughout the year and a network to work with. And it's an awesome experience. I've had 2 players go through it and they absolutely loved it. They're in coaching now. So it's a matter of just putting yourself out there and being willing to meet people and use the resources that you have.
Great advice, Matt.
Yeah, I think what MaryLynn and Lyndie said is right on. And to couple that, it's how you use those organizations and how you network. I was operating a baseball franchise and saw that the new athletic director at the time, Jody, had such an extensive background of Boston College, UCLA, and we started off as friends, getting coffee at Starbucks every other week. And that relationship led to the job I have now. So I ran the Waves for 6 or 7 years, and a job opportunity opened up at Salve where it could be a position that could also help me be an AD someday. And that's sort of how that all happened. But without the relationship or friendship that Jody and I built, I wouldn't be on this podcast right now. So to couple what they're saying, it's great to join these organizations. It's how you utilize, and you're always networking in this industry. I think that's something that everyone has sort of, reiterated, but that's definitely true.
Casie?
So with my grant, I had the opportunity of attending a lot of different types of conferences. I attended 2 different NCAA annual conventions and 1 COSIDA convention, which is what Sports Info, that's the big conference of the year. And so out of college, I thought that like networking, like people told me, like I had the mindset going in to hand out as many business cards as I could to however many people. And what I've learned through the last 2 years in this entire process is it's more about the genuine relationships that you create when you're there, because that will stick in someone's mind when you're talking to them. So the next time I went, the second year that I went, I handed out my business cards to people that I had genuine talks with, that we connected over something. And I know that they would remember me if I handed out my business card. So it's not necessarily about however many people you can connect with or network with. It's literally just creating those genuine relationships that, like someone else said, when you do get that apply for a position and somebody is there, they can give you a great recommendation and a reference and help you obtain the job.
That sounds great. And Matt?
Yeah, just briefly, because all of our panelists have hit it on the nail, or the nail on the head, excuse me. MaryLynn said something that you are networking constantly. And this is just a quick, brief example from my history. So we were playing away at Salve, interestingly enough, Matt. We tied 1-1. It was 2 years ago now, I think. And one of the young men from Salve, a player, made his way over to the bench, completely out of his way to get back to the athletic building, and just came up to me away from everyone else and said, "Hey, coach, great game. Really love the way you guys play. Like, that was a fun match. Hopefully we'll do it again soon." Gosh, like that sticks with you. I remember who it was, the day, what the weather was like, and the look on that young man's face. So it sticks with you. It really does. You are networking constantly and leave it better than what you found it.
That's great advice. And in my years, I've had maybe 3 or 4 experiences similar to that, where it really stuck with me. A young man after a baseball championship game that Salve won a few years ago came over to me in the middle of their celebration and just said, "You know what, thank you for everything you all do in this conference. It's been a privilege being here for 4 years." That's an unbelievable feeling when somebody says that. A few years ago at a student athlete advisory committee, I brought my son, who at that point, he was 8 years old and tags along for a lot of different events, and struck up a conversation with one of the young men that was there. And to make a long story short, he's somebody I check in with all the time. He's trying to get started in his career. He's got a great podcast that he's getting off the ground, and you just never know. You never know who your next friend or your next colleague might actually be. So I think we've got some great advice there. Doug, I think you had another one that you wanted to throw at everybody.
Yeah, before we jump to that question, I do want to kind of touch on this whole topic as well. With regards to what Casie said with building genuine relationships, this panel could be seen as one of those. Obviously, right now, those in the audience, we're not seeing you, we're not interacting with you. We'll remember speaking on this panel, and some of the interactions that I've had with people is, oh, hey, you came and talked to this class. I might not remember every person in that class, but I remember doing that thing, and then that's how you start that conversation. So I just wanted to add that in. The next question that we had is related to social media. Obviously, as coaches and as people, you see student athletes interacting on social media. You have your social media as on your own. Do you have any regrets from your time as student athletes on social media? Doesn't have to be anything specific, just whether or not you had it. And what would you tell today's students about the use of social media when they're looking at a career?
MaryLynn.
So I definitely don't have any regrets because I'm actually in the too old category on this one, with social media. So, and cell phones, because we had to carry digital cameras around when I was in college. So no regrets there, thankfully. The biggest piece of advice I can give, and I use this with my student athletes when we start the year every year, is don't post things on social media unless you would be proud to show them to your grandparents or proud to have them on the front page of the newspaper. If you're not proud about that, then they don't belong on there, because you don't want to come back 10 years from now and be like, oh my God, why is that on there? Or 10 years from now, apply for a job and somebody did some digging somehow and finds that, and it comes up and it kind of bites you and you're like, oh, I really wish I didn't do that. So think before you post and make sure that your grandparents would find it acceptable.
That sounds great. Great advice. Casie.
Yeah, I completely agree with MaryLynn. And I actually remember a presentation that we got at Endicott as student athletes. And it was a presentation. I'm trying to remember what it was mainly about. It was mainly about the effects of social media and different things like that. And I actually have a real story about players on my team where they created a fake Instagram account and they didn't think that it would be traceable to find. And they were just doing some college things that shouldn't just be posted on social media. And they actually got suspended for a couple of games, and people found out. So people are always checking them, whether you think that or not, whether you're private or public. People are trying to find ways around that, especially people that are hiring you. And because social media is so up and coming and it's been trending, I did have social media when I was there, but I made sure I always have that presentation that we were offered. I always hold it to my heart, because I know that they basically said if it's representing your brand and you are the brand, and so if you're posting things, it also represents the school that you go to, the team that you're on, and a whole bunch of your family. It represents so much. So just making sure that's clean. And like MaryLynn said, that your grandparents would want to see that is really important.
Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and change gears a little bit and try to peel back some of the layers about what has helped shape you first and foremost as people, but second as professionals. Question is, who has been the biggest influence in your life and why? And we'll start with Matt Horth.
Yeah, so I have two. Sorry, cheating a little bit on the singular best influence. First was my dad. Growing up as a kid, he was always my coach, whether it was t-ball, soccer, basketball, whatever. And he had this incredible ability of just letting me play the game and fall in love with the game. So approaching it from a standpoint of very much hands off, he let me own my own experience and become accountable for what I wanted to do, how much I wanted to practice, how much I wanted to grow, which sports I wanted to continue pursuing. And a lot of those lessons along the way stuck with me. And the second one is a high school coach. And if we were to put me on the sofa and do some psychoanalysis, I'm sure that would pretty much be the point where I started to lean towards, I want to be a coach one day. But he took me, a young man who was 15 or 16 and still figuring out life and where my trajectory was going to go as a person, and he helped me. He showed me the path less traveled. He showed me the path that was maybe more rewarding, but a little bit harder instead of the path of least resistance. And the lessons learned through the game, through chalk talk, through film sessions, through, coffee at Starbucks, talking about life, those stuck with me. And in many ways have shaped the man I am today, the coach I am today, the husband and father, and the coworker as well. So those are my two.
That's great. Thank you. Lyndie, how about you?
So much like Matt, I definitely would have to say my dad. I'm an only child and a daughter at that. So, he grew up, I grew up, really being pushed to try new things and, doing things that traditionally maybe a dad would do with his son. I was the one out there in the yard helping him, clean up and doing the automotive things and all the other things. But I think he prepared me so well for life because of that. But he also was born with a congenital heart defect, and he's had 4 open heart surgeries over his life. And he was always told no. He was always told, no, you can't participate. No, you shouldn't do this sort of thing. He was always the one who stubbornly balked it. It's probably why he's still here as a medical mystery and potentially miracle. But, I took that to heart. So when I started in athletics and those sorts of things, he never told me no. He always encouraged what I wanted to do and made sure that I never backed off of something that I wanted, even if it was hard, and really instilled the idea of me believing in myself and my abilities. So I would definitely have to credit him with all of that.
That's great. Thank you. Casie, how about you?
Okay, so naturally I have 3. Two of them are my mom and dad, and I know it's a kind of a cliche answer, but they definitely have shaped and molded me into the person I am today. And growing up, my dad was the athletic one in the family. Sorry, Mom, but he always pushed me to be the best person I could be on and off the field. He taught me that the more you work, is the more you are successful. And so I think that's where my work ethic, where I got that from. And so just whether that would mean like staying after practice one day or a couple of days if I didn't feel prepared for the game, and asking my coach for a couple of extra fly balls and stuff like that. And he just taught me a lot about that. And then my mom was the one who's like academic and focused on professionalism, and she pushed me in that way. So I think it was a great balance, and they both instilled values in me that I will take with me for forever. So, and then my last one is the assistant women's basketball coach at Roger Williams University. Her name is Michelle Sprita, and she was my coworker for probably 2.5 years. And I have never met someone that works harder than her. I look up to her in so many different ways, but her work ethic is unbelievable. She is super positive, super motivating, and whenever she's given a task, she never complains, and she completes it to the best of her ability. And so I just think looking up to her professionally is definitely somebody who has influenced me in my life.
Thank you. Matt.
Yeah, some really good feedback on the panelists. This is great. I would say my parents, they preached early, treat others how you want to be treated, do your best, actions speak louder than words. Those are just really key values that I learned growing up. My high school basketball and baseball coach, both different personalities, completely different coaching styles, but one I really learned mental toughness from the basketball coach, Coach Paul McCormick, and then Coach Brooks, our high school baseball coach, who has close to 800 wins now, gave me an opportunity as a freshman to start at a pretty good program. And I learned early on that sports is something that, politics shouldn't play a part of. What you put into it, you get out of it, and a chance to earn what you deserve. And he also held players accountable, but never once yelled at a player during a game. It was always at the next practice where his little voice recorder would come out, and it didn't matter if you were the all-state kid or someone on the bench. If you threw equipment, you're running 15 pulls. So holding people to a standard. My college baseball coach is still someone that's one of my best friends. So really lucky to have a college coach like Eric's dad, Coach Sorella. And I would definitely say that Jody Meridian has had a huge impact on my life as our athletic director now. Like I said before, we started out a relationship as friends, and now we get to work together. And it's something that I feel really fortunate that I'm able to do every day.
That's great. MaryLynn, how about you?
So there's definitely a laundry list of people I could name, but the biggest impact on my life is definitely my dad. My dad's my rock. It's I do have a brother, but my brother lives in New Zealand, so it's basically me and my dad now. And my dad's always been there to support me in everything I do and anything I wanted to do. As a kid, a funny story my dad will tell all the time is we were out playing baseball in the yard, and my brother's a year older than me, and he'd pitch the ball and my brother would swing and miss. And then I'd get up and I'd hit it, and my dad would just try to throw it harder and harder at me. And I could just hit it, and then my brother would get mad because, you know, he's a boy and he's older and he should hit the ball better. So my dad always challenged me and always allowed me to be involved in everything. I got to play with the boys until I was in high school because it was just easier for our family to travel with both. And my dad credits that to, it was a challenge that I needed to have happened. And my dad has taught me that everything happens for a reason. And kind of a saying we have in our family is, what are you going to do? We try not to stress on things. My dad and I are both very low key, low stress people. We look at situations and try to say, you know what, we can't change it. So how do we move forward? And that comes from my grandfather. Just, what are you going to do? And you got to go forward, and you got to have your eyes up and be ready for the next opportunity. So definitely my dad.
Tremendous, tremendous stuff. Now, we've spent probably the last 45 minutes or so getting advice from all of you that our panelists can take with them and hopefully apply to their own situations. But what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received? And it can be about anything. It can be about sports. It can be about life. It can be about, you know, making sure you have a full-size spare tire in the trunk. Anything that really sticks with you. And we're gonna start with Lyndie.
So I have to say the best piece of advice I've ever been given is basically to be part of the solution and never part of the problem. That's something that's always stuck with me. It's not something I've heard from one particular person. I've heard it from multiple people in my life. And I think that really has been what I've hung my hat on as a professional. Whether it was, you know, figuring out a way to create my position at UNE and, you know, all the different people we had to work with to make that happen. But always coming to the table with, here are the solutions and here's how we're going to fix the problems. And that takes a lot of extra legwork on your part to always be prepared with that, but it's never steered me wrong.
Sounds good. Casie.
So mine would have to come from my 6th grade middle school basketball coach. And the piece of advice is, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And at the time, I did not understand how that would affect me in any way in 6th grade playing middle school basketball. But I can't believe how much it has affected my life. Whether it would be, like I said, getting those extra fly balls in the outfield before a big game, or studying extremely hard for a test, or preparing for a meeting at work, or preparing for an interview. Literally just preparing in general will always lead to success, especially if you take the time out of your day to make sure that you're prepared for whatever it is you have to prepare for. So I just think that it was an amazing piece of advice. And I honestly think that might be a quote from John Wooden, but Mr. Bruckner, my coach, would appreciate that.
That is tremendous. Matt Finlayson.
Gotta love the John Wooden quotes.
Absolutely.
Someone once told me, as far as like prioritizing your energy and focusing and being present, and I think all of us that work in athletics would say, you know, being present and in a moment allows you to make good decisions. Is if something's bothering you, is it going to matter in 5 years? right? Like, is it really going to be, is it that important that it changes things drastically, or it's going to have a long lasting impact? Or should you focus your energy on something that's more important? I think that's a really good piece of advice, especially for people that tend to be hard on themselves or perfectionists, which sometimes I fault myself for that. But if it's not going to matter that much, then maybe your energy should be focused somewhere else.
That's great advice. MaryLynn.
These are all great things. I'm going to give a shout out to Charlie here. Something that has always stuck with me, and I'm sure she remembers this, but she had once said to, I think it was the staff when I was a student, be a Tigger, not an Eeyore. So it goes with that energy idea, and she gave out Tiggers to the coaching staff at the time. For me, I took it as always be present. Your energy gives off to other people, and they're going to take it from you. So give off something good. We're all going to have bad days, and we're all going to go through things. Take a second, take a deep breath, recollect yourself, and be present in the moment and give your best effort all the time. And when things don't go well, don't walk around moping. Like Lyndie said, you can find a way to change it, but use your energy for the good. So it's always stuck with me to be a Tigger.
That's awesome. For those who may not know, Charlie is Charlie Robert. Charlie was the longtime athletic director at Nichols College, also a longtime veteran field hockey and lacrosse coach. And Charlie remains a great, great friend of the conference and so many people. So if Charlie says it, it must be true. So that is wonderful, wonderful advice. Matt Horth.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I got was from my dad. Growing up, he more so than I was a big fan of Warren Buffett, who's the great investor and owns Berkshire Hathaway. And one of his quotes that he always used to tell me and my siblings was, the best investment you'll ever make is actually in yourself. And this is from a guy who's got hundreds of billions of dollars, one of the biggest companies in America. The biggest and best investment you'll ever make is in yourself. And investing in yourself meant tackling the areas that you're not good at and learning new skills. And my dad would always follow that up with, and do it now. So any chance you can use to get to get better, to address what you are strong at and become even stronger, and address your weaknesses as well, you're going to realize that that's going to pay major dividends down the line.
That sounds great. Okay, we're going to switch gears again for another set of questions, and then we'll take a look at some of the questions that have come in. While I'm sure that each of you would stress the importance of continually looking forward, I'd like for you to reflect back a bit, as not too long ago you were in the seats occupied by most of the people in our audience. First up, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself in college? And we'll start with the person that probably remembers college the clearest. That's Casie.
Yes. So what I would tell myself in college is I'm definitely like kind of a type A person where I stress about everything. And so whether it would be practice, whether it be school, or be finding a job, and I was also working at a gym at the time. So probably just people would call me kind of a perfectionist too, just trying to be perfect at whatever I'm doing. If I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would to be relax and to enjoy the ride. And I know that it's so cliche again, and people say it to you all the time, but what's meant to be will be. I'm definitely a firm believer in that. And college went by super fast for me. I'm already in the working world, and sometimes I wish I could just go back and enjoy college. So I would definitely make sure that you enjoy it while you can.
Thank you. Matt Finlayson.
Casie, perfect answer. I think that enjoying every second, focusing on what's important, and the relationships that you're building while you're in college are ones that you'll carry on for years and years and years and long afterwards. So enjoying the people you're with, enjoying your coaches, enjoying competition, right? There's only so many things that we can compete in as athletes, and that's going to end. So definitely miss I'm not a big like beer league softball player or anything like that. Golf's probably the only thing I'm competitive at. But enjoy the competition, like really appreciate the opportunity that you have to play these games or matches or whatever, and treat people really well, because you're going to know them for a long time.
Thank you. MaryLynn.
Stay as long as you can. I wish that could really be the answer. We could all stay in college forever and live that life where you don't have real adult responsibilities and you get to go to class and play sports, and that'd be great. But on a real note, I wish that when I was in college, I could tell myself to experience more. I was so focused on where I was going to go and what I wanted to do and was driven to do that I was dead set in athletics and this is where I was going to be. Like, I wish that I did internships outside of that and had different experiences just to get different skill sets and kind of see the world from different perspectives, which I am able to do now, but I do wish that I kind of did that when I was in school.
Sounds great. Matt Horth.
You will never regret having not watched more Netflix. And just the fact that there's so much else out there, as these other three have alluded to already, the experiences, the relationships, the opportunities that you await there, you might regret missing out on those.
Lyndie.
I would say definitely not to be afraid of making mistakes or being wrong. I am a bit of a perfectionist as well. But I, at times, was so paralyzed with my fear of whether it was in practice, messing up a play, or missing a defensive assignment and those sorts of things. And I know that held me back as an athlete, specifically. So, definitely, I remember going back for my first alumni game and playing really, really well. And Anthony saying, you just played so well. Like, why did you and I was like, well, I don't know, but I just didn't have that pressure on me anymore. So before it gets to that point, my friends, please don't be afraid of mistakes. And to that point, he used to write on our whiteboard before every game, he'd write up a different acronym of some sort. My favorite was ETF, which was enjoy the fight. I think sometimes we tend to avoid conflict and things that are uncomfortable. I'm still working on this myself, but if we are willing to enjoy that is not comfortable, and not even get outside our box, but just embrace the competitive fire and factor in life, even if it's not comfortable, that's a really good growth, potential.
Thank you. And Lyndie really set up my next question, which deals with mistakes. As human beings, we all make mistakes. Those mistakes are critically important to our growth as people and as professionals. If you had a do-over, is there anything that you would do differently? And we'll start with Matt Finlayson.
I think as athletes, we aren't able to travel abroad as much. Like, I think studying abroad is a great thing for a college student. You gain perspective, which a lot of college students don't have. The world is a huge place. And I was able to study internationally in Australia for a few months with international sport management. And that was just an experience where it opens your eyes to different culture. You meet great people and you understand that, diversity is a great thing and there's so much out there. So experiencing a lot. And as athletes, you sacrifice time with family or travel or whatever. But if you're able to gain more worldly experiences, I think that has such a positive impact on someone.
Thank you. MaryLynn, you already alluded to something that you would have done differently, but I'll give you another stab at it.
One thing I actually would have done different athletically is I would have played soccer all 4 years of college, as well as with basketball. After my first year, I decided to just focus on basketball because the seasons overlap so much and I was playing a lot on the basketball court and I was worn down by February. But I think if I had just prepared a little bit better and changed my nutrition plan and slept, it definitely would have made a difference. I'm not a big sleeper as it is now. Still, I sleep about 5 hours a night. If I could have just got maybe 5 while I was in college, playing 2 sports would have been a great opportunity. So I would love to go back and get 3 years of soccer in.
And with the soccer segue, Matt Horth.
Yeah, MaryLynn, there's always time. You can convert back. I think for me, if I had to go back and do it differently, I would remind myself a bit more just to enjoy the journey. and the process. As a big competitor, there was always, in the moment, I was focused on the next game and the next game and the wins and preparing myself to do the best I can. But I think what we all ultimately realize at the end of our collegiate career is that it's the experiences that stay with you, right? The journey itself is the reward. It's the process. It's the hard practices. It's the sprints at 6 a.m. It's the fun times. It's the bus rides and the team hangouts and the jokes. That's what sticks with you. And yeah, there's a couple wins and some good goals and things like that will stick out, but mainly it's just the relationships you have with your teammates. So maybe favoring that much more than I did.
Sounds great. Lyndie, how about you?
Well, I was injury prone, to say the least. Tore my ACL my senior year. I'd torn one in high school as well. I missed out on my senior season, most of my senior season, tearing my ACL 4 days into that year. And I decided to play the senior season on a torn ACL. And at the time, I was just so hungry to be with my team and lead them. And I mean, MaryLynn was with us as an assistant that year. But I think that I would go back and give myself that 5th year. I was, hungry to start my life. I was engaged to my current, my husband now. We were high school sweethearts, but I was kind of ready to finish. I didn't want to finish my career so fast, but I also had things I wanted to go on and do. And I think I would have found a way to stay and finish that year, to everyone's point of enjoying the time and making the best of it. The worst feeling was being watching the next year's team in the NCAA tournament and knowing that I could have been there with them, even if it was just as a bench supporter and making them better in practice every day, which was pretty much my role anyway. And I also would have hit the weight room a lot more. I went in and I certainly made use of it, but we didn't have somebody who really specifically worked with us. We had somebody who would design a program for us. And, I would go in and try to get my teammates to go in, but I definitely know I could have maximized my own potential a lot more and taken it a lot more seriously. So I wish I had done that.
Yeah. Casie.
I definitely should have hit the weight room a little bit more as well. But in terms of experience and what I wish I would have done differently, I think I would have liked to diversify my internship experience a little bit more. Although I had 3, I would have liked to do one of them in a professional sports organization just to kind of see how that would fit. But kind of some more advice of what I have for the students or the student athletes that are watching is no experience is a bad experience, despite what you feel in the moment. It could be not such a great experience, but you definitely learn from that, and you get to see what you don't like to do just as much as what you want to do. So I think from my experience, I would tell everyone to just go out there, get some experience, even if it's not ultimately what you want to do in the end. You still have multiple things that you learn from it. So
Those are all outstanding answers. Before I check in with Doug to see what the audience is thinking, because I know we have some questions, there's a final question that I have for you. What's the one thing you would tell somebody who is considering a similar career path, or someone who isn't sure what they would like to do following college? And we'll start with MaryLynn.
My best piece of advice is to put yourself out there. Be willing to talk to people. I got a job and got into this career path pretty easily because as a student athlete, I talked to every coach, every official, people at the scorer's table. Gregg, when you were there, I talked to you. Mm-hmm. I chatted people up and wanted to know what you did and how you did it and why you did it and what was happening. And it led to just those connections. But you have to be willing to put yourself out there and ask questions and learn what's going on, be it within your own institution and the different coaches, faculty, staff that are there, be it at an internship you're doing, but be willing to be you and put yourself out there to other people.
Excellent. Matt Horth.
Yeah, just like Casie said a moment ago and MaryLynn just said, put yourself out there, get experience. Bringing on a coach with no prior experience, whether it be recruiting or coaching or things like that, is always a risky move. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But if you really want to make that next step and transition well, it pays to get some experience, whether that's a volunteer assistant, a graduate assistant, which is a great setup, or under 9 rec league for your sport, whatever it is, or go and find an internship that's at a sports corporation that you want to work with. You got to get out there and get experience. And then I'd also say for someone who isn't sure what they'd like to do, consider the question, what breaks your heart? If you can find something that genuinely breaks your heart and then find a job or a career path that addresses that, you will never, ever wake up and dread going into work. You will love it. It'll be something you're passionate about, and it'll be something you're fired up. Even on the worst of days in the thick of COVID, you'll want to get up and go to work.
Tremendous. Lyndie.
One of the things I love most about my job is mentoring my interns. We usually have 4 to 6 seniors who are applied exercise science majors, and many of them come to us thinking that they're going to go on to physical therapy, and you know that's their path, or that they want to go into PA school or nursing and all those other pieces. So I always challenge them, if they want to do a strength and conditioning internship, you know, how can I help you with that? So I always try to help them find the pieces and parts of what the experience that they're currently in, and how is it going to help them in the future. And to that end, also challenging them, those who feel like they do know what they want, to ask themselves, kind of to Matt's point, you know, what is it that would make you sad if you didn't have it? And that's always been a good piece of advice. And maybe thirdly too, those who think they kind of know everything and they're all set on it, that, you know, do you really know it all yet or not? You know, not having that know-it-all attitude about things, and being willing to ask questions and be curious learner.
Sounds great. Casie.
So my advice about what somebody would want to do, or they're not sure if what they want to do after college, is probably like a ton of other people have said, just to get that experience. So I actually have an intern with me right now who came to me my first year there and said, hey, I do these videos on the side. I love it. It's my hobby. I make GoPro videos of like my vacations, and like I've done some of these videos before. Like, would this be useful to you? And I was like, heck yes, we need so many people in this field. And so I brought her on as one of our interns, and she was a video intern with me for 2 years. And just this year, she's going to be a senior now. She sat down with me and said, you know, I don't really know what I want to do. And she's a marketing major, and I totally felt her pain because I was there once too. And she said, and we both came to the conclusion that, hey, you're the video intern, but why not get some graphic design experience? Why not try different areas of what I do to see if you might like that? And because she's a marketing major, video and social media are just as important in that field, and she wants to get all the experience she can. So even just asking questions, just like other people said, putting yourself out there and talking with someone that you look up to about your career.
And Matt.
Yeah, I mean, this is a wonderful panel. I'm probably going to have my sport management class listen to this and write a reflection at this point. But yeah, never stop learning or trying to get better. Treat people well, work hard. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Be able to make decisions and while believing in yourself and staying true to your values, but also understand this is an industry where you never stop learning. It's also a very competitive industry. If you think about the state we're in Rhode Island, I want to be an athletic director. There's 7 total positions in an entire state. So realistically, you have to work hard and you have to really be passionate about it, because it's not going to happen quickly. And it's one of the more competitive career fields, whether you're a head coach, strength coach, SID. There's only so many institutions that you can get hired or could have that job. So it's highly competitive, not to put any fear in anyone that's listening, but going into it, you need to understand that it's a highly competitive industry.
Thanks, everybody. Let's check in with Doug, see if he's got some questions from the audience.
Yeah, thanks, Gregg. We do have some questions, and I'm going to start with this one. We have some questions that are for the entire panel, but this was one of the first questions that came in that was directed specifically to Lyndie, from a young woman who is also an exercise science major and aspiring grad student in sport performance. She's interested in being a strength and conditioning coach. So she was wondering what challenges you had to face entering your position as a strength and conditioning coach, and did you see any challenges specifically being a female?
That is a wonderful question. First and foremost, my email, get ready for this, is LIBBY2. So LLibby2@une.edu. Please email me. I'd love to hear from you and get to know you. Challenges, yes. I mean, I think there definitely are some that are unique to strength and conditioning. Matt just hit the nail on the head. It is a very competitive field, and you really need to know your stuff, your science and your theory. And you also need to be great at coaching, and not just great at coaching one particular sport. So maybe one particular piece of advice I have is to get experience with lots of different athletes, because the Division III arena is a great place to be. A lot of people overlook it in the strength and conditioning field because they kind of see the Division I or professional realms as perhaps a bit sexier, to put it that way. You know, that's where they want to be, and they think it's got more appeal to it. But Division III is so special. I mean, you guys are Division III athletes, so you know, you're really playing for the love of the game. And I think coaching that is a real honor. So learning to coach a breadth of different sports in the weight room is a huge piece. It's going to set you above the rest of everybody else instead of specializing in a niche, perhaps. You know, it's no secret that I played college basketball, and perhaps that's, you know, comes more naturally in program college basketball, but I also have to be great at, you know, programming cross country, which shout out to Aiden. I see you on here. That's awesome. But then as a female, I don't want to take too much time because we can always chat personally as well. It can be a challenge in the field for sure. Especially when you're working with male teams. And, you know, I think I don't know the exact number now, but I'm definitely one of a very few female strength coaches who coach football specifically. And that's been a really a big honor to help build that program with Coach Mike Lichten. And it's been a challenge in a lot of ways too, not just specifically with them, but, you know, they've never had a female coach up until now. So that's kind of a unique aspect that you have to learn to kind of work within. And, you know, when you get to the point of having a family, it can be a challenge of, you know, the hours in athletics in general. But, you know, when you have great administrators like I do with Heather Davis and Kurt Smythe, it makes everything much easier. So I hope that answers the question, but I would love to talk more in depth with you too. So please shoot me an email. That goes for anybody on here as well.
Thanks, Lyndie. And I posted that email in the chat, so everybody should be able to see it. I guess just kind of following up on that, working as a female in athletics, I don't know if Casie or MaryLynn, I know you guys work in administration. So are there any experiences that you'd like to share being a woman in athletics?
I'll go. Go ahead, Casie.
Okay. I honestly have been used to it just because I have been into sports my whole life, and similar to MaryLynn, I was also playing with my brothers, my younger brothers, like on their sport teams as well. And so I was always usually one of the only girls into what I was into, sports. And also my sport management program, I was probably one of 3 girls in the entire program. And so it's definitely interesting when the majority people are male, but I think I haven't really experienced any problems with it. I've just been used to it in my personal opinion. And so I love working with girls and guys. So.
I mean, I guess I haven't had issues, but I think the one thing I will say is use your voice. Be willing to speak up, be willing to use your resources, be willing to stand up if you see something that doesn't seem right or isn't right. And like, you have a voice, you have to use it, and you have to be willing to speak up for your female athletes, female colleagues. It is a business that is predominantly male, which is fine. I mean, I work at a college where our student population is 68% male. So our students get that experience right from the get-go. And you want to get into athletics, you want to get into the business world, it's the same thing. 1 in 10 CEOs are a woman. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there and be in that situation, but you have to use your voice and be willing to speak up, and be willing to speak up more times than a male may have to. You may get cut off, so you have to interrupt and say, excuse me, I was talking, and just be willing to have that fight.
Thank you. So this question is for all the panelists. What's a good way to find your first job in the sports industry? How did you get your position? How did you capture your employer's attention? This person has had some internships, but still doesn't feel ready. MaryLynn, you're still on my screen, so if you want to just go.
I'll go. Again, I kind of alluded to this earlier. My experience was very different. During my senior year of college, towards the end of my season, I emailed every coach that I competed against that I felt I liked what they did. I liked the way they carried themselves. I liked the way their team played. And I emailed and said, I introduced myself, said I had competed against them, liked what they were doing, and was just wondering if they knew of any opportunities to get into coaching basketball. I didn't ask if they had an opportunity, just if they knew of any. Off of my email, I was offered a few jobs on the spot without even giving a resume, which is, again, a very different experience. But it goes back to my point of putting yourself out there. But I did interview for a couple of jobs, and I had to weigh some options in the end. But I guess my biggest piece of advice with it is reach out. If you're not sure what you want to do, connect to the people in your internship and see what they may think you could be good at. Now, they've worked with you for a while, so they may have avenues for you to go. I also think it was important that I left Nichols. I think it's important to have different experiences and be able to grow as a person and learn different things. I love being back on the Hill, but I also brought so many different things from the other experiences that I've had and the different people that I've worked with that it's allowed me to grow as a person. So first of all, you just got to put yourself out there and don't be afraid to hear no. It's kind of a joke when I recruit student athletes. I tell them this: I hear no more than I hear yes in my life. So I'm used to it. Just tell me no. You can't be afraid of no. You're going to hear no a lot. There may not be jobs, there may not be opportunities, but there may be other ways you can connect with those people and they can help you, or you can learn from them. So just don't be afraid of just the no.
Oh, hey,
Let's go
Matt.
to Lyndie. Yeah, no, let's go to Lyndie.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'll be quick. No, totally fine. So similar to what MaryLynn just said, like I mentioned, there was no strength and conditioning position at UNE. I was working at the private sector facility I had interned at, which I was offered a job on the spot. They called me back and said, hey, we have an opening. We really want you to come in and work for us. And I said, on it. So I did that for 3 years. And then when the position opened at UNE, actually prior to that, I had reached out to Coach Ewing and said, hey, you know what? I just had my first son, and actually he was 7 days old when I started coaching. He was in the baby carrier on the court with me, getting hit with basketballs and craziness. He was brought up right. And I started volunteering as an assistant coach for the women's basketball program. And I was also kind of helping them with strength and conditioning and those pieces, and helping any other teams that maybe had questions or needs. I literally was giving away my intellectual property completely for free because I wanted so badly to help my fellow Nor'easters. Like, that was just where I wanted to be. And then over time, the doors opened at the right time for me. But I do firmly believe it's because I was willing to give of myself first. And I just believe in karma, but also timing and being in the right place at the right time, and asking continuously and knocking on doors continuously until it happened.
Yeah, MaryLynn and Lyndie, great points. I think differentiating yourself, not just having like a cookie cutter approach. If you really want to get into, a coach's staff, or even to work for a marketing company, have a connection with them. Hey, I love the inbounds play you called in overtime there. It's, I see how you coach. I see how you treat your players. Or if it's a marketing firm, love the digital platforms that you've done with Instagram and Twitter or whatever. But being relentless too at the start is something you have to do. You're going to fail. I think being a baseball player, like, we fail more than anybody. So that's sort of helpful. But you have to be different. You have to prove your worth once you get that opportunity. What sets you apart? Don't just send generic emails or even generic voicemails and think that that's going to work out. Show up, not right now, but show up in person and shake hands. Make a connection, and also try to be something that's above and beyond than the rest. It's a competition. It really is. So.
Casie?
So kind of what my experience was like was I talked to actually my athletic director after my interview, and it turns out that when I got my job, I was one of 2 people who got the job. and who were going for the job. I was one of the finalists, and actually the other person who didn't get the job, they were actually more qualified on paper than I was. And even with my experiences, I guess they were more qualified. But the reason why I got the job is because I was myself in the interview, and they thought that my personality would be a better fit for their culture. And so this just goes to show, like, you can have a lot of experience, but if you're not yourself in that interview, then there's just multiple components that go into an interview process and an application process. So always be yourself.
Thanks. So the last question that I have here from the chat is going back to the last section. We were talking about some of your memories and past experiences. So this question asks if you all could share a special, memorable, or rewarding experience in your career, or maybe a toughest experience in your career. Going either way. Go ahead, Matt.
I'll go rewarding, so I can avoid the public dismay of humiliating myself. But rewarding, I'll never forget winning a conference championship with my teammates freshman year at Cardines and going to the NCAAs. That was just a special experience that you get to share with your coaches and teammates, and something that you'll never forget.
Anybody else have this experience? Go ahead, Lyndie.
Same thing, being able to win a conference championship my junior year was phenomenal. We lost it narrowly to Salve. Come on, Matt. By 2 points my senior year. But I think even more so, like, having had that experience as a student athlete, one of my focuses as our strength coach at UNE is that I want my student athletes to be in pursuit of championship moments at all times. So if they're having a down day, I'm like, are you in like the pursuit? Like, I'll say that to them and that they know what that means. Be in pursuit of that championship moment, and getting to see them win the championships is literally, I thought I was going to go into labor last year on the sideline at the women's soccer as they repeated. And one of my athletes jumped on top of me. I was like 8.5 months pregnant. And I was like, whoa, this is great. And then Heather's like, whoa, dude, like, stop. But, I absolutely love seeing them succeed on the highest platform. There's nothing better than that.
Go ahead, MaryLynn.
So I'd take a different kind of perspective here. I think the most rewarding thing for me has seeing student athletes that maybe struggle initially when they come and watching them grow and accomplish something, be it on the court or off the court, but really seeing them grow into a person, and then having that person reach out to you, be it 2 years or 5 years after they graduate, and realize the impact you had and thank you for what you did, and kind of give back to the program in a different sense. For me, the most rewarding part of my job is the growth of my student athletes. I'd love to win 10,000 championships. I'm one of the most competitive people there are. I don't lose well, but seeing them grow and develop into people and the next generation is really kind of the best part of the job.
Casie, was that you saying that had something?
Yes. So I think piggybacking off of that, seeing my work study, I'm not a coach, so, but seeing my work study kids grow. I know when my first year at Roger Williams, when I had freshmen come in, and I introduced them to these different positions, game operation, sports info positions that they could work, broadcasting, doing the clock, doing the book, being a spotter, different things like that. And I introduced it to everyone. And for my first couple of years, everybody was like, okay. But the more they found themselves and they became like confident in what they wanted to do, and the more they wanted to learn, now I have those same kids like fighting over who wants to broadcast the events, because they've learned to love it and they found a new passion. And just like knowing that you're a little piece of that is really rewarding.
Go ahead, Matt.
Maybe not rewarding to start, but a little cool. So after I made the jump after college to playing professionally, I was recognized once in a grocery store for being on the field that weekend. And it was just one of those surreal moments. It's like, yeah, that's me. And, it was cool. Anyways, rewarding, one of the great things that I have from my own Gordon career is that we're still in touch, me and my teammates. I've been to 3 weddings so far, 2 actually this past summer, not this one, but the one before. And we stay in touch, and it's not, a chore. It's not something that we really have to put effort in. It's just like, oh, you know what? I haven't called John Clancy lately. Let me, call him up and see how he's doing. And they have the same respect and the same relationships with me that we just want to stay together in terms of what's going on and just do life together and celebrate life's successes. So wins, great. These relationships, man, they last a lifetime.
Sounds good. We are coming up on 8:30. Panelists, you've been amazing tonight. Before we wrap it up, any parting thoughts or words of wisdom? Matt?
It went back actually to something Lyndie said. I think it was on the first question when we said how we got into athletics. She said at one point that she told herself she was going to be the first strength coach at UNE. It wasn't even a thing yet. There wasn't a position yet. She created, in essence, her own position. She had a vision. She had a plan. She believed in herself, and just the sheer amount of determination and perseverance. For any student athlete watching, like, that's what you need. You need to be a self-starter. You need to believe in yourself. You need to know maybe not exactly what you want, but how and what you need to do to start achieving or taking steps forward to doing those things. That's a terrific story, and that's just down to her work ethic. So if there's anything I can leave you guys with, channel that. And well done, Lyndie.
Thank you, Matt. That was very, very sweet. I would also add to that a lot of people mentioned diversifying themselves and setting themselves apart. And just having that growth mindset continuously, whether that's going to get a certification and those sorts of things. It doesn't have to be in strength and conditioning and personal training, et cetera. But I mean, there's lots of other ways to be, on it with your continuing education and stay up on those things, and continue reaching out. And I would honestly love to hear from every one of you in some regard and learn about your experiences. So to our fellow panelists, you guys are great. It's great to actually get to meet you guys and see you.
I'll go. I kind of have 2 things. One, stay true to yourself. We all have values that you believe in. Don't take a job that your values don't align with, because you'll be miserable every day. So stay true to you. And then my second thing is realize that no job is beneath you, especially if you want to work in college athletics. You're going to do a lot of things that maybe you never pictured yourself doing. Could be laundry, could be sweeping the floor, could be fixing a basketball hoop, could be, fixing a scoreboard in the middle of a game. It could be being a ball chaser as a professional. They're not beneath you, and they show that you're invested and you care, and be willing to do those jobs, because the experience you get from them, it adds value to your career. So no job's beneath you in any field you're in.
I would just say, to piggyback off of that, I would just say, like, you're never too old to learn. And so no matter what position you're in, just take that learning mindset and, like someone said before, be a curious learner. Please don't act like you know it all right from the get-go, because there's so much that learning that everyone needs to do. So if you take that attitude towards your next goal or your next chapter of your life, it will go unnoticed. So.
Matt?
I just want to thank everyone on the panel for tonight. It was really special. I don't have any defining words of wisdom that are going to beat what the previous 4 panelists said, so I'll just leave it at that. Gregg and Doug, thank you guys. This was tremendous. Appreciate everything you guys do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everybody. Just a little teaser before we wrap things up. Be on the lookout. We're going to be announcing in the coming days our next student athlete development program, which is actually going to be 2 weeks from tonight. We're not going to tell you what it is just yet, but I think our young women in the audience, and especially the person who asked the question about working in a non-traditional industry, I think you're going to be really, really happy with our next program. Lyndie knows what I'm talking about, but it's going to be a really fun one. So be on the lookout for that one. Panelists, I can't thank each of you enough for joining us and sharing a little bit about your story. You are all great mentors and role models that definitely shine through the entire conversation tonight. Thank you again for being here, and most importantly, thank you for all that you do for each and every student athlete that has come your way. This session, as well as the session from last night, those will both be archived and available on the conference website shortly. So please take some time and watch it again, or share it with a friend who wasn't able to be here. So everybody who was in the audience, thank you so much for participating. Be on the lookout for those next couple programs that we're going to be doing. This was fabulous. I really enjoyed this. So thank you, everyone.